Welcome everyone. So excited that you are able to join us tonight and really excited that we're able to offer this session to you all. For those that I don't know, which actually is a good group in here, my name is Michelle. I'm from Chicago originally and was part of the first class of Greenhouse Scholars from Illinois back in 2016. My entire professional career has been in education and access, and I now actually work at Greenhouse on our Young Leaders program, supporting our alumni. So really excited that today came about because of an alum. So just another reminder that this entire community is what it is because of each and every single one of you. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two speakers for tonight. So first, I want to introduce Nicole. Nicole was born in Colombia and immigrated here when she was 4 years old. She grew up in the former capital of the KKK, Davie, Florida, and graduated from the University of Florida in 2018. She received her law degree from CU in 2021, and she now is a federal law clerk, planning on working for the Department of Justice starting next summer. Next, we have actually another plug. Nicole is also a mentor at Greenhouse and is part of our professional networking directory. So just kind of want to plug all the different ways that these two folks are involved. Tomas is a 2017 Colorado alum who completed his undergraduate studies at Syracuse, and he completed his law degree at CU Boulder as well. He's currently serving in the U.S. Marine Corps, and he's a judge advocate for the Special Victim Unit Prosecution and Counsel. He's also a professional networking contact. He's really passionate about supporting people from our background when it comes to pursuing a career in law. So I'm going to hand it over to you two.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So what we're going to try and do is give you just the quick 101 on how to be an attorney. This will be recorded, and so hopefully this gets passed down to other scholars, even if some of those scholars that were interested in this weren't able to make it. We ask just that if you have any questions, just type them up in the chat, and we'll get all of them done right at the end. So without further ado, how to be a lawyer. We're going to do introductions. We're going to go over what do lawyers do. I didn't have an idea what a lawyer did, but I just thought it sounded really cool when I was growing up. So that's why I decided to do it. We thought might as well give you that foresight now. We're going to go over what's required to be a lawyer, and then we're just going to hit all those questions at the end. All right. Let's just go ahead and, I guess, hit our intros, and then we can hit it from there. So, as Michelle told you, I graduated University of Colorado Law School. My fiance is there in that photo on the left side. My cat is there at the bottom. Her name is Lilo. She's awesome. That's me in training in the middle. That's me boxing in the top right. And at the bottom, it's me giving a speech on immigration rights in DC. But before all of those like big accolades and awesome moments, there are some humble beginnings. So my family's from Michoacan, Mexico. That's a picture of my grandma and my grandpa back on the ranch. That's where my parents grew up. And well, the cartel ended up threatening my dad, nearly killing him and threatening my mom. And from then on, my mom crossed the border pregnant, and I was able to be born in the U.S. Luckily enough, as you can tell, I was pretty well fed. So that was not an issue. But growing up, I would go to the restaurants where my parents would clean, and I'd sleep in those booths at night. I'd wake up, go to school smelling like kitchen grease. And it was in those moments that I decided to just let's get myself and get my family out of these circumstances. So yeah, there you have my little middle school graduation photo at the end.
And I'm Nicole. Michelle did a great job with the intro. I was born in Colombia. As you can tell, I wasn't super happy to be here at first from the lower picture, but eventually I warmed up to the idea. I am also obsessed with my cat. In fact, I crochet her little things in my free time, so it's a pretty big obsession. In law school, I was able to meet my better half, Tomas, and then in the center there, you'll see it's a two-part for me. The reason I put this picture, one is on there is a mentor that has really just guided me throughout my entire legal process. The second aspect, when I put that picture up, I realized that I am the only person of color in that picture. And one thing I was reminded consistently at work is that I want more people like me to walk the same halls that I do. And this is the reason I dedicate time to do presentations and work like this.
Yeah. So let's go over the big, broad, abstract topics of what it means to what a lawyer does. So generally you have this law, you have international law, which is handled in between countries, and then you have this domestic law. The procedural law will be the rules and how the law proceeds, but then you have the substantive law, and that's probably the meat of what most attorneys do. You have public law, and that focuses just your general constitution, your criminal law, that sort of things. And then there's private law, which tends to be a lot more lucrative, tends to have you working for the big companies and doing other stuff. Divvies up into a number of different things. But let's get into these and what these mean with pictures. It's a lot easier.
First, I'm going to say if there's anything funny on this slide, it was 100% Tomas. All the memes, everything was him. So you can thank him for that. But getting into a little bit of the bigger picture, I didn't really understand what law meant. But for me now, it breaks down into, I think, two big groups. One being private law and the other being public sector law. So for private work, it's what some people call big law or firm life. Some of the pros of that is that you have a very high starting salary. So some people start working straight out of law school over about $200,000 a year. And it looks good on your resume, honestly. And it's something that people are like, oh, you worked in big law. That's something that's well respected. Some of the cons, though, are that I have friends working in there now, and they are working Monday through Sunday, 12 to 14-hour days, with having to beg for breaks to have Christmas Day off. And I think another aspect of it that's unspoken, or at least to me it was, is that you're getting paid a lot of money to be at someone's beck and call, that being a client. So what that means is a lot of the times, if your client wants you to lobby against environmental law regulations, that is the work you're getting paid to do, and that is the work that you'll be doing. So if you're considering going to be a lawyer, especially into private practice, that's something to consider, especially if you're getting into those bigger law firms. It's some of the work that you don't necessarily have much of a choice as to what you're doing. The other aspect of that is government work. And I'll be honest, I'm biased. I've been doing government work since I graduated law school. I plan on doing it for my career. But from what I've seen, this type of job does have a lower starting salary rate. So some of them will start, say, at like 65K, and you get to work your way up to maybe about 300 once you've stayed there your entire career. But these jobs have a way better work-life balance. Tomas can attest to this as well. You're done by 4 or 5 p.m. You have your weekends, you're good to go. And then in terms of the actual substantive work that you're doing, you're kind of on the opposite side of firms. So let's say a firm is telling you to lobby against environmental regulations. Usually what the government is doing is trying to uphold those regulations that they've put in place. And then I'll let Tomas get a little bit into DA, PD.
Yeah. So DA and PD work, that's honestly the most akin to what I'm doing currently, right? I'm an attorney for the Marine Corps. Oh gosh, so adorable. Sorry. I'm an attorney for the Marine Corps, and that for me right now currently entails doing prosecution work. And so whoever doesn't deserve the title of a Marine Corps or of being a U.S. Marine or needs to be thrown into the brig, I'll be doing that. On the opposite side, you have the defense. The point of putting this out there is that people from our backgrounds are needed on both sides. People, if all of PD work is just people of color, no one's ever going to be on the other side offering the deals, offering ways to like come to a solution quicker, offering to resolve things without going to trial, and maybe just offering different avenues instead of just prison time. Hey, like let's get this person into a drug rehab. Let's do these other things. And if no one's on the DA side doing that, it's a bad look. I think both Nicole and I can attest to immigration probably being a little bit close to home. That's another subsect of law that for me, I thought was going to be something important. I think it was also something important for Nicole, something that we thought we might be able to get into. But my first instance of being exposed into just immigration law, there was this moment where this grandma, it was this documentary, she was talking about how she didn't care about what happened to her or her body. She just wanted to make sure that her granddaughter had an opportunity, just an opportunity. And that, like, I lose it. I lose it because I see my mom and dad in those situations, and if I fail ever in some immigration work, I'm gonna have a hard time, and it probably will mean I fail a lot anyway, just because of how the immigration system is set up. So, just for me personally, I knew that I could fight the good fight, but I just cannot do it through immigration work. I don't know if Nicole has anything more to add there.
I would just say, I think one big takeaway that I want you guys to get from this slide in general is there is a lot of different ways you can practice law, but depending on your personal circumstances, some of them might hit closer to home. And it's something that I didn't realize going into law school. I thought I wanted to be an immigration lawyer. I didn't really understand what that meant. So just give some thought. If you do want to go into law, you want to become a lawyer, maybe as to what different area of law, and then how it's going to impact your mental health and your day to day, because that will be your job day in and day out. And that's just something I hadn't really, I guess, thought about before.
Yeah. The last couple of things that we have on here is, and these are just other options to consider, is just being in-house counsel, which is, again, working for the company. But at that point, you're not being hired out. You're inside the office. You're part of the decisions, and you're again at the beck and call of the business owners. But from what both of us hear, it's a lot more relaxed. It's if there's any big heavy lifting that needs to get done on a big case or anything like that, they hire out the firm and they figure that out. Otherwise, you're just there. Hey, somebody got a speeding ticket. Great. Okay. You know what I mean? And you just give them an answer. Another option would be to open up your own shop. This can happen after you have your own experience, build up your experience. Hey, I want to be private defense counsel, and that could just mean people call you for just in case they get into those speeding tickets or get into trouble and whatnot. You could end up helping people write their wills, helping people sue other folks, and that sort of thing. But all those are still just options for you. So, things to consider.
I think there's three main takeaways. Obviously, there's a lot of things to consider before going into law school, but the first one being that it costs a lot of money, depending on the law school you go to. But for the most part, you're going to have at least $180,000 of debt, which can seem very scary and daunting. But one thing that, especially as greenhouse scholars, you should know is that there is resources and availability for things out there. For example, I was able to attend law school for free through a program in Colorado that paid for my entire law school for the 3 years. Besides Colorado, there's other universities that have that same type of program, and that's something that feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. Happy to share more about that, at least my personal experience. Beyond that, let's say you get into a school and there's a lot of debt, but you don't get the scholarship or a full scholarship. There's something called PSLF, where essentially if you work for 10 years in public sector work, they will forgive that loan. And this is not just for lawyers, just in general. If you work in public sector, they forgive it after 10 years. So there's options. Another aspect that I used to hear a lot is that some jobs don't pay well. And for some reason growing up, I'm like, oh, lawyers make a lot of money. And then I got to law school and people are like, no, if you're in public sector, you're not really making a lot of money. At least for my personal experience. Right now, I'm making more than my parents have ever made, and I think I'm doing fine. And I'm not making the 200K plus, sometimes millions that some attorneys make. But I feel like I'm doing fine. We get to go on our vacation, so keep in mind if you do hear that from people. There's 80K starting salaries for DAs or 65 for PD, and that's just your first year, and it eventually goes up. So if you do hear that, just keep in mind that it's about, at least for me, perspective. And I do think the job pays decent. I don't know why I started hearing that in law school, but I did.
Yeah. Just to hit off of that point, right? I think a lot of those people that go to law school that end up in those positions, as I think we all mostly know, a lot of higher education is filled with a lot of people that have parents that come from circumstances different than ours, right? I am also out earning my parents, both of them at the same time, and that's not saying that they made a lot. It's a very low bar, right? But because I've never seen that much money, 80K is awesome, right? I'm like, this is a great time. And so yeah, if these people are saying, oh, okay, maybe being a lawyer doesn't pay as much, it's probably because they just also grew up with a little bit more income in their household. And the last thing I just want to hit on this slide is that, yeah, it's difficult. It's hard, but the people in this call, the people that are going to be looking at this video, right? You're greenhouse scholars. You can do this. If you made it through the circumstances in your life to get here, you can sit through a couple exams. It's not a big deal.
Also, we'll be going over actual tips later on.
Yes. So let's go over just how to be a lawyer. It's 4 easy steps. You go to college, you take an LSAT, you go to law school, and you take the bar exam, and then you're a lawyer. Very simple, very easy. You can end up being like those folks on the slide. So while in college, these are just the biggest takeaways that you need, right? Any major is acceptable. Doesn't matter if you're a dance major, science major, engineering major, what have you, right? Any major is acceptable to go to law school. But the biggest thing is this. You need a high GPA and you need a high LSAT. Nothing else matters. And I did not understand what that meant until I started applying, right? Everyone here and everyone who's on the phone call, everyone who's going to see this video is brilliant, and they got into college because they scored high, but also because their story was amazing, right? That's no longer the case. Affirmative action is banned, and now especially, right? Even before with affirmative action, there was a high value on high GPA and high LSAT scores, and then there may be, if you're in the same ballpark as somebody else, maybe you get picked because you have a better story. Now, that's not the case. You need these two things, and if you don't have them, you're not even considered.
One quick caveat. I know that recently LSAT scores for some schools are no longer considered, but recent conversations I've had just at least in Colorado, they still highly encourage you to take the LSAT. I think now it's either the LSAT or the GRE that you can take. Law takes a while to change, and they're still highly encouraging you to take the LSAT. So if you are going to apply, I still recommend taking the LSAT if possible.
So going into what I was saying about those very high requirements for the LSAT and for the GPA, right? This is a 3.51 GPA. This is a very middle of the road LSAT. Your chance to get into the Yale is 1%. That is 1% that were accepted, 96% were denied, 3% were waitlisted. Right? That's the reality, right? You need a high GPA, you need a high LSAT score. We're about to get into how you can get at least the GPA aspect down.
So these are just some general tips, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, and a lot of you already know about this, but one of the major things that I'd recommend you do is talk to your advisor for your major. So let's say, for example, you are interested in immigration law. While you need a high GPA, what would also really help in your application is if you've shown interest in immigration law, you've taken maybe some immigration course that's available. Another thing that would recommend is there's no shame in easy A's. The amount of students that I know in different schools that just padded their GPA with like whatever easy class you could take, me included. I did that my senior year. I did not want to take hard classes. There's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, a lot of the people that I know that ended up getting better scholarships at the schools, it's because they had that slightly higher GPA. So it might not make a difference for law school admissions. It does make a big difference for the actual scholarships that you can get. I'm assuming a lot of you are already very organized. I am a planner, so having your study time, deadlines, and all of that planned out, especially when it starts coming time to, hey, I'm in college, but I have to apply for law school and I have to take the LSAT. Having that planned out really does help. I'm a big proponent of Grammarly and using every tool to your advantage. So that means if there's Grammarly available, if there's study hours available, talking to professors, just reach out, even if you're not struggling. I think something that I really didn't do enough in college is I thought I always had to be on my A game. So I refused to ask for help because I'm like, no, I got it. I can figure this out on my own. And the quicker that I learned that there's people, both in greenhouse scholars, the staff that you have here, each other to help you, it really does make a big difference. And then last thing is pick a few things and do them well. You can sign up for a bunch of clubs, you can sign up for a bunch of committees, but what they really want to see is they want to see you being president of an organization and what you did during your 4 years in college there, during your time there, instead of signing up for a bunch of different things and just being a member. The next thing is, Tomas basically already covered it, is 3.5 GPA and above. That's what's going to set you to be the most competitive for the different applications that you're sending out. And then networking with professors and just talking to professors. They, even if they're not lawyers, have so much institutional knowledge as to how to help you and also be able to eventually maybe write you really good letters of recommendation. And they can, some of these people considered law school and then went into academia. Maybe you're thinking about law school now, and maybe that's not the route for you. You can talk to these professors that have thought about these same things that you have and have more conversations with them as to how they can help you. This fourth one, I think, at least for me, was the most important, is interning at a law related job. So I spoke a little bit earlier about this. I thought I wanted to go into immigration law until I entered an immigration law firm, and I had to turn away my first client and say, I'm sorry, you don't have money to pay for services. And I was like, oh, maybe this is not something I want to do. So if possible, and it can be as easy as cold emailing some people. People want interns all the time. If anyone's in Colorado, my job, I'm working at a federal court. We'd love to have you as an intern. People are looking for interns all the time to just, hey, how can we want to help you, but we also, we want you to learn about the law, and we'll give you tasks that you can actually do. And then the last point, there's just some pitfalls of being in college. It's hard. There's weighted classes, meaning if you take a 4-credit class and you flunk it, that's going to damage you a lot more than taking a 1-credit class. And that, I think, ties back into that first point of just trying to be strategic with that. And then the second point of, you really can't help yourself, help others if you're not helping yourself. Burnout is very common both in college and especially in law school. And if you right now can get kind of a grasp as to how to handle things, how to take time for yourself, still spend time with your friends, it's really going to help you. To be honest with you, it's something that I didn't do. I didn't do a gap year. And within my first month of law school, I was exhausted. I was already so tired because I had rushed through college and I just wanted to get the thing done. And I wish I would have learned earlier on what it was to really take care of myself and make sure that I was pacing things out. So there is no shame in doing a gap year. And honestly, I think that some of the people that I went to school with that took a gap year did better than I did, just because they had that kind of year to breathe between college.
The last thing I just want to hit on this slide, and Nicole alluded to it. You want an internet a law related job, there's a greenhouse directory where you can cold email people that are willing and able to help you. These people signed up already to help you. And so if you just shoot out a cold email to any of these folks, let them know you're a greenhouse scholar, let them know, hey, I want to figure out a law related internship. Great, right? If they're in that law area, I'm more than sure that they're going to figure out some way to get you involved. So let's get into LSAT. This is going to be the trickier part here. And it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you just need to take it, and that's that. There's a couple other places that I think Nicole mentioned that some places are now accepting the GRE. She also said that you should still take the LSAT. I'm in full agreement with that. That's just been the metric for a lot of law schools. You don't want to shortchange yourself and not get into the dream school just because you took the GRE instead of the LSAT. So this LSAT, it's the law school admissions test. It's built with reading comprehension sections where you just have huge paragraphs, read that, and then there do takeaways. You have logical reasoning sections, which say, hey, bears stand upright when they're trying to reach honey. What's another reason why a bear would try and reach for or try to stand upright? And then you just pick out logical reasoning answers and hope that you get the best one. And there you go. Next thing is logical games, which is, hey, Abby, Sally, Candy all want to sit at this table, but Candy does not want to sit next to Sally. Sally just needs to sit next to Abby, and you just go from there and you figure out where the seating is for everyone. All of these questions are difficult. They're very hard, but the best thing is that it's a learnable test. So you get through, you have those 3 sections, you do all those things, and then you get a score between 120 and 180. Obviously, the 150 is the average, and if you're looking at the Harvards, the Yales, all those places, you need a 160 plus, if not higher, right? And that has to be in combination with that high GPA. In August 2024, which I know that there's some freshmen on the call, or maybe potentially some freshmen watching the class, there will be a change, and then it will only be logical reasoning and reading comprehension. It'll be those 5 sections, and it'll be 35 minutes per section, 10 to 15-minute break, and just all those questions mixed in together. I think the math broke down to less than a minute per question every time you take one of these sections. So it's fast. Either way, there's a number of test dates. You can look at this and decide whether or not you want to take it right after you graduate, whether you want to take it right after during your 3rd year in college. The last thing to consider here is once again that it is a learnable test, and so you need to take an LSAT prep class. That's baseline what it is. There's other people with resources that we don't have that are paying thousands of dollars to get a leg up on you and on other students. So you need to take it.
Did you take one?
I did. And I would not, there's literally a 10-point difference between before I took it and after I took an LSAT prep course. Okay. It made a huge difference in between whether or not I got into law school baseline. The best thing about this, though, is that you are a Greenhouse Scholar. You can apply for flex funding and get $1,000+ to be able to pay for those prep classes. And now the reason why I keep hitting this is because, yes, getting into the law school, getting into those things, and getting a high LSAT score is going to be great, but it's going to pay up dividends on the back end. Why? The higher your LSAT score, the higher your GPA, the more the school will want you, and the more scholarships they're going to give you. Nicole was a killer. She absolutely nailed the LSAT, had an incredible GPA. What did they offer her? Full ride. All right. I sucked. All right. What did they offer me? Nothing. Dang. So I needed to figure that out. Right. I needed to put more effort into this and figure out the prep courses. And so learn from my mistakes. Right. Don't end up like the GIF. Take the LSAT prep class.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's get into what law school is like.
The pictures are pretty accurate descriptions. We've already been over this in terms of just how difficult law school is, but I wanted to give you an idea of what a day in law school is like, because I had no idea. I was like, what do you just show up and it's class? How is it different? So about every week, you're reading about 300 to 400 pages, tiny little font, very thick books. And you're not just reading those, but they're going to ask you the smallest questions about, hey, on this footnote in page 12, Nicole, do you remember what Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dissent was in this one tiny issue? And you're going to be like, no, I don't. And I didn't realize that I thought I was reading them generally. So keep in mind, if you end up going, it's going to be a lot of reading. And I love and I enjoy reading. And even for me, it was honestly just a lot to have to read through. And then let's say you walk into class, you've done your reading, you're good to go. How it works is it's a type of seminar style where you're in class, and whether you're ready or not, they're going to call on you. They're going to be like, Tomas, can you tell us about this case? And then they're going to start doing critical thinking and these types of very in-depth questions where it's not just, hey, what is this case about? But how would you do it differently? The Supreme Court messed this up. How would you do it differently? And I was like, I wasn't ready for those kinds of questions. So for me, it just felt like my brain had to be on all the time. Where in college, I could kind of sit in the back sometimes and doze off if I needed to and just make it up. It's not like that in law school. They know if you're dozing off, and they will call on you for 45 minutes straight and ask you questions for 45 minutes straight. I'm an introvert, so that was the part I hated the most. I was like, I'll read, I'll do what I need to, but just getting called on was awful. They do that a lot more your first year to honestly kind of scare you. Second year, things become, in terms of the reading, you kind of have the hang of that. But this is where extracurriculars come in. So this is when you're expected, okay, well, you're in law school, but you're going to want to find a job. That means you better be doing extracurriculars. You better be doing internships. You better be on law review, journal, all of these different extracurriculars on top of your work. So for me, that year was hard, not necessarily because of the classes, but because of all these other things that I had added on because I thought I needed. And you do need them, honestly. It sucks, but you need them. If I wouldn't have done these internships, I don't know I'd be in this job right now. So for that, it was a very tiring year. 3 year is fine. I was honestly just bored and I wanted to get out of law school. And I don't think law school needs to be 3 years, But at that point, it's just your third year, and that one you can cruise a little bit more, depending. So 2 year, if you're able to find a job, a lot of people find a job that summer. So when they go into their third year, they're kind of cruising. But if you're not able to find a job, you might also just be frantically looking for a job because you're going to graduate that, that May, and you want to be able to have something lined up.
Yeah. The last thing I want to hit on this is just going back to the basic structure of the law school class. Yes, you have your 9,000 page books. Yes, you have to read 300 pages every week. You're asked over the facts, what the law was, what the issue was, and how that's different now because of this case. And all of that doesn't matter because at the end, you have an exam that is 90% of your grade. 10% is maybe how you performed in that class and whether or not you showed up to office hours. So you could bomb all of those cold calls, and you could show up to the exam, know it cold, and like do great, right? Or like it could be the complete inverse. But that's just the fun little tidbit about how law school is structured.
That was very important. I'm sorry I missed that.
Then the last thing, all right? You have this bar exam, okay? So another little story time, right? That's an actual message to the group chat with my boys. I had to take it 3 times. That was 9 months of studying. It was so hard. Okay, it was so hard. Nicole killed it. She was able to pass on the first time, but for me, I'm dyslexic. I got diagnosed with the ADHD. I didn't take the meds because because of my ego, and I want to make it by myself. And so, what happens is I literally mid exams, I'll always just drift off for 2 or 3 minutes. Oh man, what happens if Russia invades? And what do I do? Like, do I jump behind that table? I go on for another 4 or 5 minutes before I realize, oh man, I'm still in the exam. I've lost time already. So I did it. I did it eventually. And it was so hard that honestly, right? In the Marine Corps, there's this thing called the basic school. I'm away for 7 months out in the woods. I'm shooting guns. I'm carrying 150 pounds on my back every day. I'm sleeping in the woods. It's like 20 degrees and below. My pants are freezing blocks, right? I would rather do TBS again than take the bar exam. It's that hard, but what I'm telling you is it's worth it. That's the whole reason why we're here doing this presentation. Nicole, I don't know if you want to go over some of the horror stories of the bar exam, or if you have anything different to add. Because all I did is just scare you. So I'm sorry.
There is, like the LSAT, it's an exam that you can learn how to do, but it is the most amount of information I've ever had to store in my brain to take a test for 2 days. Like for example, when we started studying, I was like, okay, 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, I can do that. And they're like, no, it's also Saturday and Sunday. So it's just 3 months where that's your job. That's your full-time job. And unfortunately for some of my friends, they couldn't afford to do that. So they were working, they were doing Uber delivery, Eats, they were doing Uber driving while trying to do this at the same time. So one advice, and this will be years down the line from you guys, is if you can afford to take just those 3 months to fully focus on this, I think is what made the biggest difference for a lot of people. And it's the hardest exam I've ever taken, but everyone gets through it eventually. So it's hard, but it's doable.
Yeah, which takes us to just the big why, right? There's a lot of reasons for a lot of folks. Obviously, I have a lot of reasons as well, but I think both of us share a lot of those with the Greenhouse Scholars and the people on this video and the people that might be watching down the road, right? You're a Greenhouse Scholar. You made it through some of the worst experiences possible as a little kid. You did that and you made it to college, all right? Where now you guys are doing great. So if you made it through that, you can do this, right? You can make it through a bar exam. You can probably make it without breaking down like I did, right? This is one of those tools to go out and do all the good and great things you can for yourself, for your family, for your communities, big or small. This provides you that power to do those good and great things. So just consider this as an avenue. I don't know if Nicole, if you have anything else to add.
No, that was great.
Yeah. All right. But that does it for us. So I think we see that there's a couple questions in the chat.
Thank you both so much. This felt really real. I don't know about you all, but I just feel like this was the truth of how to get into law school, what being a lawyer means, and just really appreciative of both of your time and insight. And to all of you on this call or all of you watching the recording, Tomas and Nicole are a resource for you at any point. And so if something comes up later on that you have a question for them about, just feel free to reach out. But thank you both.